Hi and good morning. Today I thought we'll talk about learning, and I'm going to give you 7 tips for raising children who loves learning. Most of the time I see when I talk to children and I teach classes, I see that there's a bit of reluctance in some children to actually learn. And I always ask myself, why is that? You know, why would you not want to learn, right? I just finished a class now teaching English to a Chinese boy. And when he's reading the story or the sentences, he doesn't know the words in the sentences. And I said to him, well, why don't you tell me that you don't know the word? Oh, yeah, 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 And I tried to explain to him that, like learning is about learning, and your teachers or the teachers at school, they want to teach. That's what they're there for. So if you are wanting to learn something and you don't know it, the obvious thing would be to ask, okay? It's like if you come to a city and you don't know where you are, you cannot just sit there on the roads, you have to find someone you can ask and say, look, I don't know where I am. Where do I want to, how do I get to somewhere, right? And that person will, I'm sure, be happy to tell you how to get there and that. So the same in learning, when we have a teacher, and of course, being with a teacher is the opportunity of actually having someone who will love to tell you what you need to know. I see when I was working in China, I was teaching governmental staff there, and some of these were in charge of dealing with foreigners and dealing with foreign issues and stuff like that. And some of these did not have any idea about, they were in a job where they had no idea about, why and how things worked and who was who and how to say things. And I just find that must be really, really stressful, right? And I'm wondering, do we also have that in Australia or in America or in England or New Zealand for that matter? Do we have people there in a job that really don't know anything about their job? I would hate that not to be the case, but I have had situations where even doctors that you go to and you rely on for expert advice, they don't know what's going on with you, especially when we talk about nutrition. But that's a whole different subject, right? But I'm wondering, and I want to put to the test a little bit to say, why are we reluctant to learn? It should be pleasurable. It should be exciting. It should be fantastic to learn something that we don't know. But most people shy away from that, and maybe because they're embarrassed to ask people, they don't seek out the information. But look, it's no shame if you don't know something. I certainly don't know everything, and I'm sure that you would be the first to agree that you don't either. So when you are sitting with someone or you are somewhere and there's something that you don't understand, the most natural question is why? Why is this so? Why, and how? How is it made? How is it done? These two words are wonderful because you can really learn a lot so much. And even if you at first don't understand the first explanation, again, don't be shy. Ask again. Say, sorry, I didn't quite get that. Can you try to explain that in a different way, right? So anyway, today we're going to talk about 7 tips for raising children who loves learning. And again, I hope that you are one of those who do love learning, right? So how do we recognize somebody who is wanting to learn, right, compared to someone who perhaps is not too worried about learning? Well, one of the things is that the people have, like eyes peeled, like their ears are like, like they want to know, they want to, really, is that how? Oh, I see. How do I fish? Oh, you go to the water and you put. Oh, really? Wow. How do I do this? How do I cook a cake? How do I whatever? People who want to learn, they are interested in getting the information. Now, does that mean that everybody is going to act like that? No, because a lot of kids we just talked about, and a lot of adults too, are reluctant to actually let people know that they don't know anything. Excuse me. So that's why it's really important to sort of be able to read the people a little bit as a teacher, and that's of course my job to read people and find out how much do they actually know about what we're trying to do, and what will make them excited about learning, because that is something that's really find very interesting, right? So loving to learn is something that you as a parent should promote, like, and preferably with a little bit of excitement in your voice as you're doing it, sort of say, wow, we're going to learn about these little worms here. Look at these little worms out there, whatever. And we can learn about dogs, we can learn about the pyramids, we can learn about many different things, right? So the question is, how can we help the kids to love learning, right? Well, we can help them engage, right? Engaged is a fancy word used in education, which means that the kids are really into what you are teaching, or what you are doing, or what you are showing them, right? And kids act differently. When you have sort of like a big class of kids, you can see different trends there, that some people are acting or reacting different to what you are showing them. And that could be because some people are audible, they love the sounds, right? And some people are visual, they actually need to see the pictures. You cannot just tell them the story. They need to see the pictures and get the whole deal. And that's why if you have an environment where all these things are together in one, then people can sort of interact with that, okay? They can sort of engage with that. Like someone who is really detailed, they need all the little detailed information. But that would bore somebody who's not so detailed. So you have to vary your instructions a little bit, going from one area to another area, so that that everybody is covered. And if you have, say, 3 or 4 kids and you are trying to teach them, then you can, if they have the different, like some is visual, some is audible, some is detailed, some is not, you can take them apart a little bit, right? And that's why I always promote, spending time individually with each of your kids, so that you really get to know how they process information the best, because that will give you a great opportunity to help the teachers at their schools and in anything else that they are learning. You can sort of like cater it specifically for them, okay? So, understand your kids, know your kids, or know your staff for that matter, because there's no different if you are a manager in a company. You need to spend a little bit of time with your people to find out how they tick and how they, process that information, so that you can deliver it, not just in an office memo, and also you are able to sit down with them and perhaps find out what they are having difficulties with. Remember, there is no such thing as a bad employee. There's only a bad manager, okay? Because it is your job as a manager to find out why your people are not able to be the best that they can be, okay? There's a reason for that, believe me. Okay, so how do we get them to engage? Well, you can ask what they did, for instance, in school today. You can help them being proud of their newfound knowledge. You can say, wow, so that, from a seed comes a plant. That's fantastic, right? And some kids, for instance, will simply relish in the opportunity to teach their parents something, right? Look, mom, like today I learned to make a cake, or I learned to do a very different math problem or whatever, solve it, and this is how you do it. Oh, really? What? So, as parents, or as educators in any form, don't come out of ego. Don't come out of, well, we know everything, and this little kid or this employee knows nothing, right? The more you can put yourself in a situation where you are being educated, the smarter you are as a manager or as a parent. Don't know anything about anything and be amazed when the kids or the employees tells you about things, right? Be amazed. Wow. Is that how we do advertising? Yeah, this is how we do it. Oh, wow. And why that and why that? Somebody who can tell you about something has learned something. And they have not only learned it, they have understood it. This is a really common trait amongst, people learning languages, for instance. They can read the story, the lines, the text, the paragraph, the whole thing, and they have no understanding of what they read. That's why you should always seek feedback, even from your employees. You should ask them, okay, so I've just taught you this, what does that actually mean, right? Like a common visual of very, very easy way of showing people, is to ask them to dig a hole in the ground, right? Let me show you here, right? I take the shovel and I dig a hole in the ground, right? And now you do it, right? So they do it, right? And then you get them to explain to you, why and how they do this hole. You also compare the information that they think they know. How big is the hole going to be? How deep is it going to be? How wide is it going to be? Location of this hole, where it is going to be, and why we're doing it. So that once you have asked and ascertained yourself that this is, they have the same information as you have. Remember, our brain, our mind, the brain is just a switching station, but our mind thinks in pictures. It doesn't think in words or numbers, right? So if I say to you, elephant, you don't see elephant in your mind. You see the picture of an elephant. If I say dog, you probably think of the neighbor's dog that keeps coming in on your lawn, right? Or whatever. Yeah, we do not. And once you understand that our mind does not think in words but in pictures, then if you want to remember something, or you want to help your kids remember something, make a movie in your mind, and they will remember from now until 30 years later. Think about it. You go and watch a movie, right? And if I ask you about that movie, you can remember the details of that movie for a long, long, long time. Right? You don't need to have a script. You don't need to make notes. You can remember this movie and who said what and what happened and whatever, right? So if you want to remember something, here's a tip, right? Make a movie. Okay. So the more curious you are, the more interested you are, the more questions you can ask will really, really help, right? Like in science, for instance, why do you think scientists wanted to discover this? How do you think that event will change people or change, questions like that will make them understand that they actually understand what they learned, right? So, okay, identify, some of the barriers for learning, and that is a good thing to do in the early case, right? Now, let me give you an example here of that in the adult life, right? That some personalities are really, really good, and they outshine themselves, and you'll see them if they start in your company, because they will spend any amount of time showing you that they really want to progress and to do something, and they really work in your interest, right? Now, what happens when people like that, they really go in, the other people in the company that don't have that ability, they get jealous and envious and whatever. And in Australia, we call it the tall poppy syndrome, right? And they start cutting them down. They undermine their abilities, and in the end, they may succeed in making you look terrible in front of your peers, or in front of your managers, or that, right? So be aware of that when you see someone like that who's really working in the interest of your company, or that they need to be protected. They need to be, even separated if you find that's the case, right? Different office, different place, that only maybe you talk with them, right? Because the other employees in your company will try to maintain status quo. It's always been like this, and we don't see any need why we should do it any differently, right? For instance, with the introduction of computers, where people have been following a manual system for a long time, you get some super smart young boy coming in there, and he or she is able to reorganize your whole office and make it run even better and smoother and whatever. Do you really believe that the existing staff would welcome that change? Not at all. Not at all, right? So you need to protect these people from the existing staff members, and make sure that the integration. Don't expect that everybody can be buddy all the time, but you need to look after that. And the same with the kids, right? You have kids there in a class that, man, they really want to expose themselves and come out of their shell, and they come up to you all the time, go, oh, look, I finished that, look at it, what now? I do that, yeah, what about this? And and the rest of the class is sitting there going, huh? We don't know anything, right? This kid just, whenever you ask a question, this kid's go, I know, right? And you have a couple of options here, right? Because you obviously cannot leave the whole class sort of sitting there, gaping about what's going on, right? So, you need to facilitate or look at how you can deal with both, I cannot say individuals because it's a class, but, and one way is, of course, is that the people who are really like hyper about, make different assignments, make separate assignments just for them, so that their mind is being stimulated, and that they can come forward and show you really what they can do, right? So, and of course, maintain the normal curriculum, perhaps for the other kids who are sort of just normal. Be careful with that word. There's no normal people, right? Everybody can be abnormal and extraordinary if you, as a manager or as a teacher, do the right thing. Show them that you are aware that they are very, very clever people. Anybody can be clever, okay? So be careful to not stereotype people and just say, he or she's just like that. No, you don't know. You really don't know. If you think you know, then you should not be a manager, right? So that's as simple as that, right? Invest in people, love the people, and bring out the best in them, and you will be so surprised. I made this mistake many times in the past, and I'm ashamed to say that, I actually fell into that trap of thinking that I know what other people can do and are like, okay? And I apologize to those people profusely, because that is not a good way. Anyway, let's look at the environment that we are teaching in, and just talk to kids in a comfortable, safe environment, and look out for any suggestions of avoidance and stress about different things. When people try to avoid something, well, they obviously have a bit of a problem, talking about this stuff. So this could be a little bit of a clue when you're listening. Of course, if you are just, talking and telling them how great you are not going to be able to get this information, because they will just sit there with an open mouth and go, yeah, of course, right? So they need to be talking. It's not about you. It's not about your company even. It's about, the teaching and the process and the information that they are retaining, how they are adapting to the whole thing, okay? So, also, understand that negatives, if you ask a question and they say, I hate it here, right? It's not a bad thing. It's an honest thing, You don't want a whole bunch of people just sitting there nodding your head, right? It's a little bit like this joke I heard some time ago, where the boss, he comes in and says, I've had it, I'm finished. And he gets his number one man in, or woman, and he says to him, fire them all. Fire all the board of directors, right? Fire them all, right? I'm sick of them. They all just yes men and yes women. I don't learn anything from them. They just all, just thinking and doing what I want. And that's wrong. Get rid of them all, okay? Hire some new people. And the person or the first in charge there says, okay, I'll do that then. So you really don't mind, who comes in. No. As long as they think like me, it's okay, right? And I know you are smart enough, you got that straight away, right? Because you are not going to. Most people make the mistake in business of hiring people that are yes people, yeah? And if they are not yes people, then you will very quickly tell them that your opinion matters the most, right? The smart manager will sit in there and listen to all the stuff, right? Like Walt Disney, he had a rule there that if 9 of the people didn't say it was a bad thing to do, he wouldn't do it, right? Now get that right. If 9 people said it was a bad thing to do, then he would not do it, right? So he's obviously going against the trend of what people are telling him, right? Why would that be? Well, that would probably be that if most people saying it's the wrong thing to do, it must be the right thing to do, right? Yeah? Think about that one. Okay, anyway, make learning fun. Kids love fun in particular, and I'm particularly addressing the situation with kids here. But look, employees are no different. We all like fun, right? We all like to have an environment that is exciting and fun. And look at Google. I mean, they've gone to extreme to make sure their employees are so happy, and other people are following suit. They got slides in the office, and they got places where their employees can rest and eat, and they have all the things thought out, where they have Wi-Fi so people can sit in any situation. If they get sick of sitting in their office, they can go down to the cafeteria and plug in there. Excuse me. So, yes, without making a long story about this, I'm sorry, this is going to be a little bit of a long video, but hey. So encourage them to pursue their interest and make the work they're doing exciting. Give them every opportunity to make their work, a nice place to be and to enjoy themselves. Make the learning relevant is another thing, right? Show them if they don't understand how what you are teaching them, how irrelevant it is. Why are we learning this? Especially teenagers, they really don't understand, some of the stuff and why it's relevant. Why do we have to sit here and listen to that? And I must agree with them. I'm always said, it's nice to know about history, and it's nice to know about all these different things, but unless you are planning to be directly involved with it, all you would need is an overview, right? An overview of history. You don't need to know every single person. Same with geography. You don't need to know every single country, and who did what and where and when. I mean, it's a waste of time, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, right? And so make the learning relevant to them, so they can see if they do this, they can get that, and this is how it all works. Okay. Now, the main thing here is to help them understand that problem solving is the biggest problem, not problem, biggest advantage, that they need to know. They need to solve problems. Very few kids is taught this in school or even at home. Okay, so this is something that you really need to be aware of and to teach them. Problem solving. We face problems all the time, and the people who are the richest people and most successful people, I don't mean those two things in the same connotation, right? You can be not so rich and you can be extremely happy, and you can also be rich and you can be happy, but to be successful, you need to solve your problems in the best way possible. And if you can help your people understand and learn that method, that is, you have saved their life, really. Okay, focus on the process and not always on the result, right? Of course, we do know the result is important. Like if you have a salesperson, it is important that that person actually can put what they learn into action and actually produce the results that you are seeking, of course. And the problem is to, of course, be solved so that we can use the information in a better way or similar to that. But when you are talking in terms of children and in their school, don't focus on, you must get it right and you must be that and you must do that, because that will take away everything, in regards to fun of learning, right? So just people themselves will naturally be wanting to do the best they possibly can, and all you have to do is to learn how you can facilitate that or help them do that, right? And also remember to teach people that to actually have the opportunity of learning something is a privilege. It's an exciting privilege, right? It's not something to take for granted. And, if they don't want to learn, then forget it, right? Learning is fun and exciting. And there was a time back then that people could not have access to. Even now, there's children and adults who has no access to any form of information, right? And they will, for the next 10 years, not know anything. Okay, you can say maybe some of them are more happy than we are. But, yeah, you know what I mean. Anyway, take the pressure off, okay? Take the pressure off. Enjoy yourself, all right? Punishing people, and especially kids, for not doing well is going to wreck this whole thing, okay? And let's not forget as parents that we didn't always do so well in school either, right? And we hated it when you are already blaming yourself and somebody's coming in and saying, oh, you did terribly at that, right? You should have done this, you should have done that, and whatever. Everybody is so clever in hindsight, right? You try to be the student sitting there and remember how it feels when somebody, criticize you or discourage you in that way, and then you are still going to do more of it next week, right? And the final number 7 here is, lead by example. Come on, right? Lead by example. Don't just sit there and think that this is something that everybody needs to learn, but you are not doing anything, right? Taking action is something that kids and employees need to see from their leaders, right? Do it, show it, right? So that people can see you're not just, talking the talk, you are walking the walk, as they say, right? So talk often, ask questions, share stories, and seek out the knowledge, right? Make it an interesting, thing that everybody can participate in. How do we get to the moon, right? What can we do to get to the moon? These questions were asked, 100 years ago, right? They look at the moon and say, okay, how can we do it? Henry Ford designed an engine, or wanted to have an engine designed that they didn't even know how to do before they started, right? So, don't think you have to know everything in advance and whatever. Make it a communal task for everybody to sort of like focus on this point. How do we fix that problem? How do we overcome this problem? Problem solving, and encourage everybody by your own action. By your own action. Look, this is how daddy does it. This is how mommy does it. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it together. Let's do it individually. And above everything, have fun. Okay? You can look in, especially in the kids, but also in employees, you can see how you are performing in the eyes of them as you are teaching it. If their eyes are down and they're looking worried and they don't understand things and whatever, it's not their fault. Remember that. There is no thing, not a thing as a bad employee. There's only bad managers, bad teachers. So, do what you have to, and I hope this is going to help you in your further quest to go for more successful results, or be amongst more happy people, and that's another thing that you can do. You can read up on other people and learn from other people too. I do this continually. Every single day I watch either YouTube, or I read books, or I try to talk to people and find out what they think and how they think and why they're thinking, and I look at the world situation, and I'm trying to establish my part of where I am in relation to all this, and where I do want to see myself in the years ahead. So, having, with that said, I really appreciate you. I appreciate your time for listening. It's gone a long video, this one, but I hope that you find that the contents is worth the time that you have spent doing it. So thank you so much, and enjoy your further studying. Thank you so much. It's Nick Struan here. Bye for now.